Hey everyone, how's it going? Will Dano here for Origin Films. Yes, I got a new haircut, but that doesn't matter. Today we're going to talk about using keyboard shortcuts while you're editing so that you can speed up your workflow and make it a little bit more streamlined. The reason why using shortcuts is pretty amazing is a lot of the times when you're editing you have to do really mundane, small little technical tasks that kind of disrupt your flow of thinking. When you're editing, sometimes you get into a creative flow where you're just kind of going through things quickly, and then you hit a bump somewhere, and that usually just cuts your train of thought, and it just makes things a lot clunkier to work with. The great thing is a lot of editing softwares, if not most of them, give you the ability to customize your keyboard shortcuts. So even if you don't like the way the shortcuts are set up by default, you can just change them to however you want, and you can work a lot faster in your edits. So without further ado, let's get into Premiere, and I'll show you some of the keyboard shortcuts I use daily in my editing routine. The first one on the list is set to frame size, and that's a setting that you can set without having to use a shortcut. Basically what it does is when you, for example, put a 4K clip and an HD timeline, almost usually that clip is going to be really zoomed in and scaled up, and so you have to click on that clip, go to the size, and scale it down so that you're scaling down the 4K footage to fit the 1080p timeline. Now the problem is, if you want to do that across multiple clips, that's going to take you a long time to go through just to resize 4K files to fit in an HD timeline. So one of the easy ways of going around that is just to set that option to a keyboard shortcut so that you could just select any of the clips you want, press that keyboard shortcut, and all of the files will be scaled correctly to fit the HD timeline or whatever timeline you're on. So if you're working with a lot of different resolutions and you're using a timeline that has a different resolution than the footage, it's great to be able to use that shortcut to just plow through all the clips and just resize them perfectly, very quickly. The second one on the list is changing the speed and duration, and this is something that I have to play around with a lot if I have slow motion footage in my timeline, or if I just want to slow something down a bit or speed it up or just do anything that has to do with speed. I'm just not a fan of right-clicking on a clip and having to find a specific setting to click on within the entire menu system. That gets annoying, and so that's just one of the things that I use a lot, and instead of having to right click on any clip, I would just set that to a keyboard shortcut, and all I have to do is press, for me, number 4 to just bring up the speed and duration settings. The third keyboard shortcut that I use is an option called Enable. Basically, if you right click on a clip, one of the options is to press Enable, and what that does is it just hides the clip or unhides it. Now again, I hate right clicking on clips, and so I just set that Enable option to be my number 1 keyboard shortcut. And so whenever I want to hide a clip for whatever reason, if I want to see what's underneath it, or if I just want to hide something and not delete it, I would just click on a clip, press number 1 on my keyboard, and that's disabled. And one of the reasons it's great is because the clip layer itself, the color of the layer, changes to a more dimmed color, and so you know just by looking at it from a distance that that's a disabled or an enabled clip, and it's just really nice to have that just be ready under one key. And the fourth one that I personally really love, and I think it works especially great if you have an RGB keyboard, and that is to assign label colors to your numbers at the top of the keyboard, so that if you want to change any of the colors of the clips on your timeline, again, instead of having to right click on a clip, go to labels, find the label you're looking for, you could just press a button on your keyboard that has a color on it that shows you what color it will be in Premiere. And so you can just customize those ones and save you quite a lot of time between changing labels. If you don't have an RGB keyboard, just put a little color sticker on top of the number, or you could just remember what numbers you have on whatever labels you set them. You can use your own system for it. I just have an RGB keyboard, and that pretty much makes it super easy for me. Whether you're using the default shortcuts or the shortcuts that you've made for yourself, usually it takes a little bit of time for you to get used to the shortcuts. And so if you get discouraged in the beginning, try to push through, because over time these shortcuts will kind of feel like second nature in your hands, and it will definitely speed up your workflows in your future projects. Comment below any of the keyboard shortcuts that I missed, anything that you think is a really creative way to use shortcuts, or any shortcut that is pretty useful that most people don't know about. Feel free to drop it down below wherever you're watching this video, because there's a lot of shortcuts that you can use, and I've only covered a small part of the surface with the 4 shortcuts that I mentioned. But that's it for today. I hope you learned something new, and I will see you in the next video.